Hello, 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 and thank you so much for joining me on this special LinkedIn Live episode where we're going to be discussing LinkedIn visibility and whether or not it is actually still worth it. Now, this is a special episode, not just because it's a special LinkedIn Live, but because this episode today also marks the launch of season 4 of my Start Being Visible podcast. Now, if you're not familiar with Start Being Visible, this is a podcast that I started. I'm about to say, I think maybe 2 years ago. It's a seasonal podcast, but when it comes out, it's out weekly, twice a year. And we're currently on season 4. And this is a podcast that's dedicated to inspiring, motivating, and equipping women, especially us ladies. Men can listen to, of course, you are always welcome in the things that I do, but it's really to encourage us ladies to step out of the shadows and into the limelight in our work lives, whether that's in our business or in our careers. So that's what the podcast is dedicated to. And on the show, I do solo episodes like this one, but I mainly have conversations with amazing women from all over the world who are doing exactly that in their work life. So if you haven't yet caught an episode of Start Being Visible, please do go check it out. Go check it out wherever it is that you listen to podcasts, and that includes YouTube. You can watch the whole season on YouTube. Just go to YouTube and search for Mildred Talabi, Start Being Visible, and you're going to see all the podcasts there. What we're talking about today is a topic that's been on the tongues of so many people, or rather the fingers to keyboard, so many people, and it's been on my mind too as well. And I have to say, of course, I have considered whether or not it's still worth being visible on LinkedIn. Because if we're honest, engagement is down for most people across the platform. The algorithms have changed and they continue to change. AI is absolutely everywhere. I mean, like, come on, so if we are going to stay visible on LinkedIn, is it worth it? And if we are going to do it, what does that Now, in case you're not familiar with me, hello, lovely to meet you. My name is Mildred, and I'm a LinkedIn visibility coach. In my day job, I head up communications, and my background is journalism, media, PR, all of that kind of stuff comes. But I have this business where for the past 5 years or so, I have helped, supported, encouraged, coached, championed, whatever word you want to use, women to start being visible on LinkedIn, which is my mantra, but it's also the title of my podcast and my book, my 4th book, which is the one about LinkedIn. But the reason that I champion it is because I believe it's so important for us to be visible. And by being visible, I mean, like, use our voice, share the knowledge that we have, the experience that we have, and really use it to make an impact and make a difference. So LinkedIn for the past 5 years has been the platform where I have preached visibility the most, in terms of really using this platform. Now, my own journey on LinkedIn, I've been active intentionally on LinkedIn for the past 5 years plus, just over 5 years. Right? I've been running my business for 5 years. I was active for about just a bit before that. But prior to that, maybe like some of you listening to this today, I just use LinkedIn as just another social media platform, and it's just a place that I just kind of showed up every now and again, posted when I was inspired, and that wasn't very often because inspiration is not faithful. But at the beginning of 2020 is when I really made a decision to lock down on this platform, because I knew I started to recognize that there was something valuable about this platform beyond all the others. And that's when I really locked down and started showing up. Now, those early days of LinkedIn engagement, what does showing up mean for me? So for me back then, and I'll talk about what I do today in a second, but back then it was posting every single day on LinkedIn, every single weekday on LinkedIn, and occasionally on weekends too. So, and that all started because I took part in somebody's paid 30-day challenge where they said, right, we're going to challenge you to post every day on LinkedIn for 30 days. I was like, what? No way. What am I going to talk about for 30 days? But lo and behold, I spoke about something for 30 days and then just never stopped for like 4 years straight. I posted every day, every weekday, and some weekends on LinkedIn. And the results were so good. It's so good. It opened doors of opportunities, collaboration. So like back then, and when I say back then, for the purpose of this conversation, I'm probably gonna say the shift that we're experiencing I would say, has gotten worse over the last year or so, maybe slightly before that, but so when I say back then, I'm kind of talking about at least 2 years and beyond, right? So back then, engagement on LinkedIn was high, so you would post something and you'd get loads of people engaged because there were less people on the platform. I think back when I started then, there was, I think the stats was something around 700 million people or something on the platform. I know it sounds like a lot, but if you compare that to the fact that LinkedIn is now at 1 billion plus followers in like 5 years or so, that's a big jump. That's, but back then in those early days, engagement was higher, in your posts and stuff. You'd put stuff out, people engage, and then you could build, the connection was genuine. You'd build a community. I built a really strong community of what became my Visible Women Tribe, Kim, and some others are on this call from there. Amazing women who I got to meet through LinkedIn and through showing up, and we built this community and connected with each other, supported each other, championed each other, grew our brands, our businesses, our personal lives, whatever it was, right? So there was high engagement, genuine connection back then. Back then it felt easier to be authentic. Not easy, I guess it's not that it felt easy, it felt more people, it felt like more people were authentic, right? Because AI wasn't even, I don't know, is it just me, or did AI feel like it came out of nowhere? Like suddenly it's like now everybody's using ChatGPT, whereas like we didn't know about it for ages and ages, and now it's like boom, now it's everyday language for everyone, but back then it definitely was not. So you knew when someone put a post out, they were writing the post. You didn't have to second guess whether it was AI who wrote the post or anything, because they were being authentically themselves and they were writing posts themselves. So it felt easier to recognize authenticity, and we actually saw more authenticity on the platform, So, and again, back then, this was when, at the time when I built my audience, with rapid growth of my LinkedIn audience, and built it up to what it is today, over 50,000 followers, etc. And most of that came during that time period of visibility, the good old days, and also came with that my LinkedIn top voice recognition, for being a top voice in the area of business and careers because of the content that I would put out, and so there was a lot happening back then, a lot of good things happening back then. So LinkedIn, of course, was my platform of choice, is my platform of choice, at the time. And it was the platform that I focused my business on and helped so many women in particular, a few men too, to really master this platform and get to grips with this platform in order to build their own brands and their own profiles, which was original Visible Woman crew. Please do drop a shout. Drop it in the comments. I'd love to know that you're here. If you're part of the new crew that wasn't part of Visible Women then, but you're part of my community today, I still love you. I'm still grateful to have you here. But listen, so that was how LinkedIn was back then. It had a completely different vibe, probably, as the young people would say, right? The vibes were different, right? And a lot has changed since then. So there's been quite a lot, and I'm curious, actually. I would love to know what you've noticed of some of the changes on LinkedIn yourself. Please do drop that in the comments. I'd love to know what you've noticed in the changes. But I'm going to share with you some of the changes that I've noticed since I've returned. And I say returned to LinkedIn because I took a break, not this year, last year, for about a year, up until the beginning of this year, for about a year. And by a break, I didn't post every day. I showed up every now and again. That wasn't because I was burnt out or anything like that. It was because of personal reasons in terms of my work life, career, all of that kind of stuff. There's lots of stuff going on behind the scenes, and I just didn't have an authentic way to show up on LinkedIn. And I just didn't want to show up if it wasn't going to be authentic, because if I'm anything, it's authentic. Listen, I'm me, and I love being me. So if I can't be me, I'm just not going to show up. So I took a bit of a break for about a year. And then when I came back, to re-engaging with LinkedIn and picking back up on the business, of LinkedIn coaching, I noticed that lots of stuff has changed, So the first thing, and again, as I said, if you've noticed any of these things, please do drop in the comments if and what you've noticed as well, some of the changes. But the first thing I noticed is that there was way more people on the platform, way more people. So as I said, LinkedIn went from like 700 million back then to now it's got over 1 billion registered users on the platform. Now, I know that sounds like a lot, and it is a lot, but it's still a bit less than Instagram and Facebook. So just putting that out there in comparison. I think Facebook is on like 3 billion or something, and Instagram 2 billion. Don't quote me exactly on that, but something along those lines. But anyway, so there's way more people on the platform now, and there's way more creators, on the platform. So which means there's more people putting content out on LinkedIn than there were before. But even with that, there's still less people. The percentage is still less than 20%. The ratio of how many people there are on the platform to how many people actually post on the platform, is still less than 20%. But however, that's one of the things I noticed. So more people posting on the platform, way more people on the platform. I also noticed that there were and there are fewer genuine and interesting conversations. Now, back in those days, LinkedIn was a place where you could have real conversations with people on posts and, and everything, and you can have real engagements and build relationships with people. But it just feels a lot less, genuine, kind of thing. Notice that, fewer genuine, interesting conversation. I noticed that there's more AI generated content, and which is part of the problem, and less originality. So more people, as I mentioned, are using AI on LinkedIn. Now, let me just put this here. I am not saying that using AI, ChatGPT or something, is a bad thing. It's a good thing if you use it to enhance what you're doing, not to replace what you're doing. In fact, I'm actually going to be running an AI workshop this month, which I'm going to share details about this week. But it's all about how to use AI to write, refine, and repurpose your LinkedIn content without losing your voice. It's really important. If you are going to use AI, use it to refine you as opposed to replace you. That's the biggest difference. But I noticed a lot of people are using AI content that replaces them. So everybody's sounding the same, and again, some more changes is that the algorithm feels unpredictable now, and engagement is lower and inconsistent for pretty much everybody across the board, and this is what I have a LinkedIn user. It doesn't give me your name, but I don't know why I can't see your name, but he's saying that you started posting from August this year and your first post had great engagement, but your following posts have not. So again, first of all, don't worry. Everybody's engagement is tanking and it seems to continue to tank, but sometimes when you do that first post and you're new to posting on LinkedIn, it's like the spike on your early post. And then after that, it kind of, the algorithm's like, well, you're not the new kid on the block anymore. Let's just put you with everybody else, So don't worry about too much about that. Just there are ways that you can try and build it up. And I wrote an article about this recently. If you find that your posts are not getting the engagement that you would probably like to see, so go check it out on my LinkedIn profile. I can't remember what the title is, but it's about something to do with engagement. It's my most recent article in my new LinkedIn newsletter. But that will help you with some tips and strategies that you can look at to boost your engagement. That doesn't involve all of this playing games with the algorithms, because I hate that stuff, But anyway, so also, and the final thing is what I've noticed, feels noisier. And have you noticed this as well? So it feels noisier. There's more promotional content. There's more, I think one client called it, this is fluff. There's more fluff. It's like the real stuff, the meaty stuff. I don't know. It's not there as much as it used to be. So there are things have definitely changed on the LinkedIn. So and with that, I want to talk about the cons and the pros of LinkedIn visibility in terms of, is it still worth it? And I say the cons first, so we can start on the downer and then maybe pick up from there. So is LinkedIn visibility worth it? Let's talk about the cons. Jennifer, good to see you from Ireland. So let's talk about the cons of LinkedIn visibility. So if you're sitting here in front of me and we're having a session one-to-one, it's just me and you, and you're like, Mildred, is it still worth me showing up on LinkedIn? Here's the downside that I'm going to tell you first, and then we'll get to the good point, and then you can decide for yourself, right? So firstly, the algorithm. The LinkedIn algorithm is more unpredictable than ever. It is an absolute nightmare. I know there are people who make it a living to help you stay up to date with the algorithm and what to do and what to tweak and how to engage and engage 2 minutes before and after and comment here, comment there, do this, do that to beat the algorithm. And those things are definitely helpful, but it is exhausting trying to keep up with what is in favor with the algorithm and what's not. 1 minute it could be video content, next minute it's text, And by the way, with the video post on LinkedIn, I really, really don't like the way video posts show up on the feeds. Like, because if you do a video post and you include a text with it, it's all buried within the video and you can't see the text unless you kind of click into the video, and most people don't bother to do that. So LinkedIn, if you're listening, change that. But anyway, so the algorithm is exhausting. It's more unpredictable than ever, and it's exhausting trying to keep up with what works, what doesn't on the LinkedIn algorithm. So that's a definitely a con. If you're thinking, is visibility worth it? There's so much to learn in terms of the rules of the LinkedIn algorithm. And then you might say, okay, well, let me just ignore the algorithm and just post anyway, And yes, you definitely can make some progress there. But there's some things that if you don't know, it could be hurting you that you should know with the algorithm. So it's that whole battlefield of what should I know? What should I do? Which advice should I follow? All of them, some of them, bit of them. It's a lot. It's exhausting. Right. So that's one. That's one. Another con to LinkedIn visibility at the moment is this whole declining engagement that pretty much everybody's feeling across the board. If I'm telling you, one of my posts that I could put out, if I had put out some of the posts that I put out now, maybe a year or two ago, they would get at least double the engagement, at least that, and some of the factors, of course, include there's more people, there's more content, the algorithm's pushing things down and however it's working. But the truth is, declining engagement can feel discouraging, as the person shared here in the comments, is that you putting out post and it's like nobody's engaging with it. It's discouraging. It can feel discouraging. So that's a con. Another one, copycat posts. I personally cannot stand this. Somebody's asking, how do you spot an AI post? It's and this is I'm gonna answer that. How I can spot AI posts. Most people can as well, but I would say copycat posts and AI posts are kind of linked, and I see them differently. So copycat posts, loss of originality. So before the AI chat GPT stuff came in, you had all of these content creator, LinkedIn guru types. I don't put myself in that category. I'm not. Yes, I do know a lot about LinkedIn. I wrote a book about LinkedIn. I am into LinkedIn visibility, but actually it's the visibility part that matters more to me than the LinkedIn part of the visibility. It's that whole really helping women to understand the importance of being visible first and the need to hear your voice and for you to show up on this platform. And then from there, we can go on to the hows and the tactics. But there's a lot of people who are teaching the hows and the tactics, and copywriters who are saying downloads. And this is before ChatGPT really took over a lot of stuff for a lot of people. But so they're like, copy and paste my thing, my post. This is how you write a viral post, copy and paste this intro, this middle, this, that. So you started to see a lot of copycat posts. Now this has gotten even worse now with AI, because people are just popping things into AI. AI can spew out a content for you without you having to think, and then they're posting it out there. So how do you spot an AI post these days? Everybody's posts are perfect. We used to have posts where people had spelling mistakes, where there's even grammatical errors, where you can hear the natural voice. But if you're scrolling through the feed and everybody has that story start, and that first line that hooks people, and it's all sounding the same, all the copycat posts, chances are somebody's using AI. Somebody or a few people are using AI. This is not to say that you shouldn't make your post as good as it can be. As I said, AI can be an enhancer, but not a replacement. But when it's just you're just copying and pasting what other people are doing, what AI is creating for you, the authentic voice of people on this platform, and it is not great. It's not a great experience for somebody scrolling through and reading it. So it's a real con. So many copycat posts. I've heard people say, like, what's the point? I put on my feelings, like, you see 10 AI generated posts before you can even hear something written by a real human with real authenticity, and real experience that hasn't been just glossed over with this whole AI, story start, this start, opening hook, all of that kind of stuff. As I said, it's not a bad thing. I'm a writer. I write, I've been writing since I was young. Like, this is what I do. So this is not to say that you cannot improve your writing, but please don't do it at the sake of losing your voice and your authenticity. AI, ChatGPT is great, but ChatGPT is not you. And that's part of the cons of LinkedIn at the moment. All of this AI copycat type posts. But anyway, let's move on from there. Another con is that it's harder to cut through the noise. It's harder to cut through the noise now. It's like visibility now takes more intention and creativity because there are a bit more people posting, because people who are posting these perfect AI posts. It's like, and people are getting sick of these perfect AI posts. It's like, why it's you have to try a little bit harder to be seen, to cut through that noise so that your post doesn't land as noise, but as the real authentic post content that it is. And that feels like a never ending race, to be constantly trying to be more intentional and more creative with your posts. And that can be exhausting. That can feel exhausting, especially after you do all of that and then the engagement is not there, so that's a con. And then last couple of points. One, the one before last is that sense of community on LinkedIn is still there, but it doesn't feel quite as strong as it used to be. I think people have clocked onto the fact that they can use this platform, to build a brand, build business. There's people send you the market, those salesy marketing stuff. I don't think we're ever going to get rid of them. They're just, people messaging you out of nowhere with stuff that you don't want, We're never going to get rid of that. But that sense of community of LinkedIn being more than just a marketplace. And of course, it should be a marketplace. It is a professional platform. It's not the same as Facebook or Instagram, which are designed for social. This was designed for professional. But amidst that professional stuff before, we also had a sense of community, which seems to be waning as time goes on. And especially with this whole thing of people feeling, and I posted a video about this, I don't know, maybe a couple of months ago, that quite a lot of women, and it's women in particular, have left the platform because they feel like they're being shadow banned, and some have stats around it and facts and figures around it. So they've left the platform shadow banned in terms of certain contents being deliberately suppressed by the algorithm, as some of these ladies have said, female related content suppressed by the algorithm in favor of, very kind of those braggy, as they call it, bro type posts, So there's all of that going on. People don't feel supported as much as before in the community of LinkedIn. And then lastly, there were previously useful free features. LinkedIn is, a lot of the other platforms, especially Facebook, have pretty much become pay to play, if you want to use them in any kind of business way. But it's like, so LinkedIn is slowly heading in that direction with some previously useful free features, like, for example, sending connection messages with any connection request that you send. That used to be, you could do that with any and everybody you wanted to connect with for free, but now that's being removed, and it's something that you can only have 5 a month, and unless you're on a premium account, which is a paid account where it's unlimited. So LinkedIn are slowly kind of removing some free things or restricting some free things on a free account in order to push people towards a premium paid account. Now, of course, they're a business, they have every right to do that, but that's just some of the cons of LinkedIn at the moment. So should we talk about the good stuff? Is there any good stuff to talk about? And I'd love to hear some of your cons in the comments, of which of these are probably that you find the most annoying, that would push you over the edge of leaving LinkedIn if it came down to it, right? Just let me know in the comments. But on the pro side, so there are some pros still to LinkedIn. It's not, there are some pros, and I'll share some of that with you now. The first one being that LinkedIn is still one of the few platforms where organic reach is possible without adverts. It is still one of the few platforms where you can put a post out, don't need to pay for the post to be sponsored, and it will reach somebody. Facebook is like graveyard. You won't reach anybody, in terms of trying to reach your right audience. And so, but you can still do that on LinkedIn. You can still reach people. You can still, if you're strategic about finding your audience on here. And I used to do a 30-day challenge called ABC Audience Breakthrough Challenge, which helped people through that. It's now an online course. If you're interested, you can reach out, and I'll let you know where to find that on my website, startbeinvisible.com. But there are ways that you can strategically find and connect with your target audience, paying for premium account or without using ads. So it is still one of the few platforms where organic reach is possible. So that's a good thing. Now, another good thing about LinkedIn is that despite AI, or maybe perhaps because of AI, people are craving authenticity. So I did mention that there are more creators on the platform. There are more people in general. There are more creators on the platform. But because a lot of the creators and people are bringing junk, it's that people are now craving real voices and meaningful stories. So if you start to show up on this platform as your authentic self and you stick to that, you will find yourself an audience, especially as people are getting fed up with all of the artificial stuff. So their authenticity is still here for the win on LinkedIn. Credibility, professional credibility. LinkedIn still is a good place to build your professional credibility. So sharing your ideas here, it still allows you to build authority and trust in your sector. So it's in a way that you can't quite do on Instagram or Facebook, because this is a professional network. It is designed for professional credibility. So when you start showing up here, you are going to build that professional credibility when you start being visible on LinkedIn. So that's a good thing that is still happening. And another one, relationships. Although the community is waning, etc., there's this whole followers. LinkedIn had made it the default maybe a couple of years ago to have followers instead of connections. You can still reverse it if you want to, So the idea is that you're now building an audience as opposed to relationships, but you can still build relationships and communities here. It's harder, I will admit, it's harder, because of the whole algorithm change. I've been posting, I've come back to posting on LinkedIn, and I generally post 3 to 5 days a week now, 3 to 5, usually midweek, occasionally some weekends. And I've been doing that, for, I don't know, almost a year now. And someone that used to be part of my old LinkedIn Live messaged me recently, a few weeks ago, and they were like, "Oh, Mildred, I haven't seen your post in like a year. You still posting?" I'm like, "What? I am still here." It wasn't the year that I was absent. It was the year that I'm here. So, and that's because of all the algorithm stuff. Now, it makes it harder to stay in touch with the people that you want to stay in touch with. But so you have to be more intentional about it. But however, that opportunity is still there for you to build those relationships and those connections with the people that you want to do it with. So, and then finally, LinkedIn, as LinkedIn continues to evolve, there are opportunities for new formats, new things are happening, new ways of showing up, the stuff that doesn't work. Eventually, we're hoping that it will start to out, the AI and all the false stuff in place for authenticity and real voices and etc. So if you hold on, and ride out this rough period, chances are you're gonna stand to gain, when that happens, if you decide that this is still worth it for you. So In conclusion, in terms of the cons and the pros of LinkedIn visibility, so I would say that yes, things are different on LinkedIn, but does that mean it's time to quit the platform? And my answer to that question, would be not yet. Not yet. And here's exactly why. Here's exactly why. Because I actually think there's a bigger picture for visibility, a bigger cry for visibility than just, oh, I'm just showing up on LinkedIn, right? I think now more than ever is the time to take up that mandate to start being visible on LinkedIn and beyond. And the reason for that is that society is changing. At the moment, parts of our world is so noisy and polarized, and there's all kinds of stuff going on. We need more people with integrity to speak out. We need more people to stand up authentically and say, listen, I'm going to use my voice and my platform for this purpose. So the call now to visibility, I believe, is not just for sales or brand building purposes. As good as those things are, that you build your personal brand on LinkedIn, you start being visible, and it opens doors of, in your career, in your work life, in your business. It gets you clients, it gets you speaking engagements, collaborations, all these things I've experienced, through building my brand on LinkedIn. And you probably have too, in some capacity. But the biggest reason, my biggest motivation for being visible, and I'm appealing to you for this to be yours, right, is that you can use your voice and your platform to make an impact and make a difference, because we need that. We need people to speak up. I'll give you an example of what this looks like. So I talk about LinkedIn visibility. That's my business. And I talk about, stuff around women, showing up, workplace boundaries, all of that kind of stuff, right? That's my business. However, some of the things that I care about on a personal level include things like, family life, parenting, my mom, 2 daughters, raising kids is something that's really important to me. And then I also care about social justice. And I feel like there is no point of me having a platform if, when the time comes to that my voice is needed, I don't speak up and use my platform for that, and all I'm doing on my platform is just, hey, let's talk about how good LinkedIn is. Let's do LinkedIn coaching. I feel like that's a waste of a platform, right? And so every now and again, I use my platform to speak up about all these other things that I care about. I might make a video about some parenting insight I've had. I might, something that's going on in the news, whatever. So about a few weeks ago, I felt really touched to put a post out about, the whole flag thing that's going on here in the UK. At the moment, you might be listening to this from an international place, but at the moment, hopefully it's getting better, right? But UK is there's a bit of division and stuff going on, and there are lots of anti-immigrant rhetoric, going on across the country. And so a few weeks ago, there was a march held in central London where over 100,000 people came out with St. George's flag, England flag waving, and basically, for the most part, not everybody there came with racist agenda or anything like that, but obviously a large proportion, I don't know how many, but a lot of people who were expressing their views and do express their views. There were flags going up all over the UK, basically saying, we don't want immigrants here, English, or England for English people, all of that kind of stuff. And there's a real kind of, that march in particular really grieved me. And on that day, I remember just feeling just like this sense of grief, And so I did what I do, and I put pen to paper, well, fingers to keyboard, and I wrote a LinkedIn post about how, for those who don't know, because as I said, I believe that my platform isn't just for my benefit, but I want to use it to reach and connect people that may not otherwise have the opportunity to hear from somebody like me. So I wrote a post about how, as a Black British Nigerian, living in the UK, how all of those I've lived in pretty much my whole life, about how all of those flags made me feel uncomfortable, and this opened the door to lots of conversations with people. Obviously, there's always the trolls who are going to come in and say nonsense and then don't have a profile picture, which is fine. But for the most part, it opened the door to conversations with people about a subject that some people may not have anyone to talk about in their regular life. to talk about it with, you know, in their day-to-day life, because they don't have friends who look like me. They don't have colleagues, you know, that they can open up to about this. So I felt like with that post, I was providing an opportunity for people to have a conversation on something so important. And it did. You know, it helped me to express my views and my authenticity on there, but it also opened the door to conversation. And that's what I really believe, that visibility, that's where visibility is most powerful. When you build that platform and then you use that platform for you to let your voice be heard on issues that actually touch you, issues that you care about, causes that you care about. I don't believe in sitting out in conversations, you know. I don't believe you have to talk about everything, but if you have an opinion on something and it's strong enough and it's part of your value system, and you have a platform, you don't have to have 50,000 followers, even if you have 500 followers, but it's a subject that matters to you. Please use your platform. You know, please be visible. You know, please, like, that is what matters about visibility. You know, it honestly, for me, that's really what it comes down to. And that's why the message for me is beyond just, oh, LinkedIn algorithms and all of that. Yes, those things play a role, but really my mandate is to help you to start being visible, you know, to understand that your voice matters. We need your voice in the equation. Whatever the conversation is, we need your voice. We need your views. When it matters, speak up, you know. So really that's really what I want to end here with, this idea that visibility is about leadership. You know, it's about shaping conversations, about challenging narratives. And you cannot do that if you're not present, if you don't have a seat at the table, if you don't have that place where you're posting and you're sharing and you're building an audience. And for now, I still think LinkedIn is that place. I still think LinkedIn is a great place for visibility. You know, obviously, Sharon asked me this question, where should you be visible? And yes, definitely, I say stay here on LinkedIn, be visible here. And of course, if there's other places that you feel resonate with, where your audience are, or where you also feel like you can make a difference, then also you do those platforms. But it's not yet time to exit. We can't exit LinkedIn and leave it to everybody with the AIs and the chat and the chat GPT posts talking about things that are not relevant to anybody's life. You know, we need people like you. We need you to stand up, to use your voice, to recognize that your voice matters, and to be your authentic self on this platform, and to be visible. So that's where I want to end with this. From here, thank you so much for tuning in.